Fuck. 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 Hola, Pío. Can you English? What's English? The question is, what is English? English. Can you English? Can you English? I don't. No. Can you speak English? Me no English. Hi, okay. Can you speak English? Sexy body. Thank you. I'm 58. Right. What the hell is going on? I don't know. Can I what? Siennakin nattu. 20. This is 20.
Humanistic theory of personality. American psychologist Carl Rogers fundamentally disagreed with Freud about what drives human behavior and how personality develops. Rogers didn't believe that human behavior is the product of unconscious desires. Instead, he believed that behavior is the result of conscious choices and the drive towards self-actualization, or the basic desire to achieve our full potential. Rogers founded the discipline of humanistic psychology. Like Freud's theories, there's little empirical evidence for Rogers' frameworks, but they were hugely influential in the development of modern-day counseling and client-centered therapy. On this page, we'll examine Rogers' humanistic theory, and then we'll explore its impact on contemporary psychology. Multiple choice question. According to Carl Rogers, what fundamentally determines human behavior? Humanism, personality, and the self. According to humanistic theory, our personality is influenced by, well, humans. Rogers, 1961, theory suggests that our own sense of self, or self-concept, as well as how others judge us, shapes us into who we are. If our self-concept is positive, then we are generally more optimistic about the future, more trusting of others, and more empathetic toward ourselves and others. Rather than making fear-based decisions or seeking approval and validation from others, we act in ways that are true to ourselves. But if our self-concept is negative, then we generally feel unhappy, untrusting, and unfulfilled, and our actions are focused on proving our worth to others. So, how does one achieve a positive self concept? According to Rogers, a positive self concept develops from an environment of unconditional positive regard. In other words, Rogers believed that how parents interact with their children shapes the environment in which the self concept develops. While Rogers disagreed with much of Freudian theory, he and Freud agreed on this point that our childhoods shape who we become. Rogers believed that parents who adopted a stance of unconditional positive regard could express disapproval for their children's misbehavior, but that pairing that disapproval with a reminder that the child themselves was still good and still loved would create a positive self concept. Yet many parents, Rogers observed, withdrew their love and affection in response to misbehavior as a form of punishment. When this happened,
What is
Rogers argued,
unconditional
children learned that their parents' love and
positive
positive
regard? What is
was conditional
unconditional
upon good
positive regard?
behavior. And a self-concept rooted in conditional love, according to Rogers, would never lead to true self-actualization. Instead, it would lead to the creation of a self-concept based on other people's expectations, not on the child's own true self. Key idea relationships benefit when we believe that we're loved and respected for who we are rather than what we do. Because we are always growing and working towards self-actualization, the importance of unconditional positive regard extends beyond childhood and into other important social relationships. Marriages, friendships, and even therapist-client relationships benefit when we believe that we're loved and respected for who we are rather than what we do. Relationships that encourage people to be genuine and offer acceptance and empathy foster a positive self-concept and overall well-being. Rogers believed that personalities and behavior can change for the better with this approach. 2 multiple choice questions. What is unconditional positive regard?
What happens when parents show love for the child only when their child behaves well? The child develops a self-concept that based on the expectation of the people. The child becomes so self-absorbed that they stop caring what anybody thinks. No.
Rogers' humanistic theory of personality
Can you put the shirt on? Can you put the shirt on? Can you put the shirt
underscores the
on?
importance of early childhood experiences to the development of an individual's adult personality.
No,
What
no,
other
no,
factors
no.
can influence how personality develops?
Can you put the
On
shirt
the
on?
next page, we'll take a look at how environment and culture shape personality as we develop throughout our lifespans.
Where are you from? Are you an American? You American?
Environmental influences on personality. As we discussed earlier in this chapter, psychologists generally define personality as predictable and stable patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. But many of us have experienced moments when people we know haven't acted like themselves, such as when a normally extroverted person acts shy and reserved at a party full of strangers. Yet just because someone changes in a new situation doesn't mean their traits have changed. It just means they've adjusted their behavior based on the setting or the environment that they're in. On this page, we'll take a look at how environment influences personality. We'll examine how situational, cultural, and lifespan related changes can affect the expression of an individual's personality. Personality, situation, and mood. Personality research suggests that in addition to our basic traits and tendencies, we also have characteristic adaptations, fairly predictable ways that we adjust our behavior in different situations. One 2009 study examined how people behave in weak situations versus how they behave in strong situations. Cooper and Withy, 2009. Weak situations are situations in which there aren't many expectations for how we ought to behave, such as
What are
quiet time with our partners or outings
characteristics
with our
of
close
adaptation?
friends. In weak
Predictable
situations,
ways
we're
that
more
we
likely to behave
adjust
like our
our
true
behavior
selves.
in different
In
situations.
strong situations, there are clearly defined expectations for how we should behave, such as job interviews or first dates. We're more likely to adjust our behavior, and thus seemingly our traits themselves, in these situations. But acting more conscientious in a job interview doesn't mean we've become more conscientious. It just means we've adjusted our behavior for the situation at hand. Similarly, personality is distinct from mood. A mood is a temporary physiological and emotional state. When we're in a bad mood, we might not act like our characteristic self, but our core personality traits haven't changed. When the bad mood ends, our normal patterns of thinking and behaving return to us. Two multiple choice questions. What are characteristic adaptations?
Predictable ways that we adjust in different situations. How is mood different from personality? Mm. A mood is a general attitude, while how is a mood different? A mood is a temporary state, while a mood is a private emotion. A mood is a temporary.
Personality changes throughout the lifespan. Although our personalities remain relatively stable throughout the lifespan, major life changes, becoming a parent, suffering a traumatic loss, or experiencing a religious conversion, can in fact change our behavior. Events this impactful don't just change our moods, they change our habits and sometimes our identities. Key idea. Personality changes over time as we establish new patterns of behavior and revise our traits to adjust to what is happening around us. Yet even major events don't change our personalities in a flash. Personality changes over time as we establish new patterns of behavior and revise our traits to adjust to what is happening around us. And these changes can occur without a life-changing incident to trigger them. We adapt new behaviors as we mature. For instance, Changes in behavior slowly lead us to become more conscientious and emotionally stable in adulthood compared to the moodiness or impulsiveness that can sometimes define one's teenage years. Leadorn, 2015, B.W. Roberts et al., 2008. How can we observe these kinds of slow, steady changes in personality? A study published in 2019 reported on the personality traits of a population sample measured 50 years apart. As part of the longitudinal study, a national sample of high school students completed a personality assessment as teenagers in 1961. In 2011, researchers asked the group to take another test and compared how participants' personalities had changed over time. The researchers found that participants' personalities remained largely stable over time, though there were reliable changes at predictable intervals. For example, traits such as conscientiousness and agreeableness, which are associated with maturity, emerged as the participants entered adulthood. But researchers did find that not all the participants changed in the same way, and that some participants' traits changed more than others. Damien et al., 2019. Still, these changes show how experience and environment can shape our personalities as we grow. Culture and personality. In this chapter, we focus on personality assessments, such as the Big Five, that were developed in the West and largely tested on people from Western cultures as well. Yet our cultural backgrounds, no matter what they are, shape our personalities. So how do the Big Five traits reflect the personalities of people from different cultural backgrounds? Multiple large-scale studies have found that all of the Big Five traits are present in other cultures. D.P. Schmidt et al., 2007. For example, Marcia Kotigbach and her colleagues, 2002, found remarkable similarities between the Big Five and personality measures designed to assess traits thought to be specific to Filipino culture. Kotigbach concluded that the basic structure of personality seems to be universal, yet other studies have revealed cross-cultural differences in how personality develops. One study showed that people from Western cultures tend to rate themselves
Major
higher on the
life
metrics of
events such as
extroversion,
becoming a
openness, and
parent can change.
agreeableness. People
How
from Eastern
do
cultures,
such
in
changes
contrast,
usually
tend to
occur?
rate themselves higher on the metric of neuroticism. McCrae et al., 1998.
We gradually establish a new patterns of
One study showed that people from Western cultures tend to rate themselves higher on the metrics of extroversion, openness, and agreeableness. People from Eastern cultures, in contrast, tend to rate themselves higher on the metric of neuroticism. McCrae et al., 1998. D.P. Schmidt et al., 2007. Another study seemed to suggest that the Big Five may describe personality in individualistic cultures more accurately than it does in collectivist cultures, such as those found in Japan and China. In collectivist cultures, some studies show situational context may have a stronger influence on personality. Church, 2001. Our cultural backgrounds, then, don't just shape our personalities and behaviors, they also shape how we think of our personalities. Two multiple choice questions. Major life events, such as becoming a parent, can change personality. How do such changes usually occur?
we gradually establish new patterns of behavior. What does research suggest about how personality is affected by differences in cultural background? There is no single structured personality that even generally applies to different. There is a detailed structure of personality that extremely consists across the whole culture. Yeah. There is a basic structure personality that varies that varies in its development.
Personality is generally stable, yet sudden life changes or gradual shifts in our environments and responsibilities can cause measurable changes in how we express our personality.